If you've trained in boxing or still do, you've already built a solid foundation. But in real-world violence, it's a completely different beast. In this video, I'm going to show you how to adapt your boxing skills so it actually works in the chaos of a vicious street fight. Let's check it out. If you're still here, you're already ahead of 90% of the fighters out there because you're not clinging to ego or tribalism. You're here to learn, evolve, and improve your odds of surviving the chaos of real violence because the street doesn't care how skilled you are in the ring. It only cares if you're ready to survive its only rule. There are no rules. This video is going to show you just a few of the changes you need to make to survive real violence. There are many more, but I'm only going to focus on the most critical. In a world of short attention spans and fights that explode without warning, this is what you need to hear first. Now, boxing doesn't prepare you for the chaos of real violence. It prepares you for a sport. It teaches you what to do in a match, with referees, rest periods, gloves, and rule-bound techniques. But real fights don't follow that script. Reality-based self-defense teaches you what to do before the chaos and how to survive once it starts. As I mentioned in one of my Warrior Walk episodes, one of the most misleading trends on YouTube is when boxers start teaching reality-based self-defense. That's a dangerous crossover because it gives people a false sense of preparation. Look, boxing is a phenomenal sport and discipline, but it's designed for the ring. That's not a knock, it's a fact. Here's an analogy. Putting a boxer in charge of teaching real-world combat is like asking a firefighter to defuse a bomb. Both are brave, both wear gear, but only one is trained to handle explosives. That courage doesn't translate, the skill set doesn't transfer, and one wrong move and everybody gets killed. The moment a boxer starts teaching about real-world combat, they're way outside their lane. The reality is a boxer needs to be trained by a reality-based instructor if they want to survive the street, not the other way around. That distinction matters. In a real fight, the wrong knowledge can cost you everything. Before we even talk about techniques, we need to address the critical stage most boxers miss, the pre-contact stage of combat. I call it the go, no-go moment. That split second when you must decide whether to walk away, de-escalate, or strike first. Boxers are trained to react to punches and angles, not behavioral cues or threat indicators. But on the street, those cues are everything and can be the difference between surviving or dying. The next vulnerability for boxers is their stance. The traditional boxing stance is a liability in the pre-contact stage. It gives away your intent, signals a fight, and makes you look like the aggressor to both the opponent and the courts. It has zero integration with de-escalation tactics, which are often critical before the fists start flying. Real violence usually begins with a verbal exchange, a spike in tension, or a sudden shift. And boxing offers no stances that bridges the gap between conversation and combat. That squared up posture becomes a fatal tell. So as I stated, the stance is critical. Now, let's say Tommy and I have a pre-contact scenario, okay? So there's gonna be some sort of dialogue. Tommy's gonna confront. Go ahead, Tommy.
Why'd you cut me off?
Okay, where'd I cut you off?
Right back there at the intersection.
Okay, so if you're a boxer, where's your stance? If you assume this type of stance, all bets are off. This is a sign of aggression. There's no chance for you to defuse the situation from that point. Also, if you wanted to launch a preemptive strike, a first strike, this is going to telegraph it beyond belief. You've got to have a strategic posture, either a de-escalation stance or a first strike stance. These are critical, and these are things that are taught in reality-based self-defense. But if all you know is boxing and all you're used to is this reference point, you're gonna be in a lot of trouble. Okay, so let's do the scenario again with Tommy and we'll show you the application. Go ahead, Tommy.
Why'd you cut me off back there at the intersection?
First of all, what intersection are you talking about?
The one right behind us where we're coming into this parking lot.
Okay, if I cut you off, my bad, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so notice right here, I'm utilizing the protective stance and I'm setting up defensive measures, or if I want to launch that first strike, such as an eye strike, palm heel strike, and a variety of other techniques, I'm in a great place to do it, non-telegraphically. And you have to understand, in this day and age, cameras are everywhere. Everybody has a cell phone, everybody films everything, and everybody makes it go viral. So if some reason your situation really gets bad, and you're showing either an aggressive stance or de-escalation stance, that makes a huge difference if this ever goes to the courts, because you're looking like you're trying to diffuse and avoid violence. But if you're having a verbal confrontation and your hands are up like a boxer stance, let me tell you what those optics are. They are not going to work in your favor if it does end up in the courtroom, and often it does. Also, a lot of boxers who don't have a de-escalation or first strike stance, they have their hands down during the pre-contact stages of self-defense. And you see this all over the internet. There are fights that begin, Tommy, here, come here. And my hands down, Tommy, just be aggressive.
What are you doing?
Okay, first of all, get out of my face, man. Notice how the hands are down, the chest is out, and they're gonna get cold cocked. And this is not just boxers, it's people who are not educated in RBSD. These protective stances, either de-escalation and grappling range, punch and kicking range, make a tremendous difference in surviving a real combat situation. But the right stance means nothing if you're hitting the wrong targets. In the street, you might be facing a drug-fueled psycho who doesn't feel pain, and boxing's head and body targeting won't stop him. Real violence demands surgical precision. You're not scoring points, you're breaking systems. Eyes, nose, chin, throat, temple, base of skull, solar plexus, and even groin. These aren't boxing targets, they're shutdown switches. Miss them and you'll lose more than the fight. Targeting is another important consideration. Now in boxing, we basically have two target zones. We have the head or we have the body. These are general target zones. But in reality-based combat, you have to attack with surgical precision. So when you're always training with boxing gloves, you're losing that advantage. It's critical to understand the difference between targeting in the boxing ring and targeting in the streets. Targeting cannot be overstated. I'm telling you, there's a huge difference between the boxing ring and the streets. Now, in the boxing ring, the general targets are head and body. And of course, when you're working out in the gym, you're hitting the heavy bags, the focus mitts, and even a sparring partner. But in the streets, you have to be specific with your targeting, because you're fighting a completely different adversary. You're fighting somebody who could be twice your size, or somebody who's fueled by rage or mentally ill. These people are formidable adversaries, and just hitting a general target like head and body is not going to stop them. So you need target-specific training. In contemporary fighting arts, we go for vital targets. For example, the eyes or the throat, and even the nose is a different type of targeting system as well. For example, in the pre-contact stages of self-defense, if I'm de-escalating and I'm justified to launch a first strike, we have a short arc hammer fist that just destroys the nose. Again, these are very specific targets that you need to exploit if you want to survive a combat situation in the streets. Hey, we're about to get back into the video, but let me ask you something. Do you want to legitimately accelerate your self-defense skills? And are you sick of clickbait videos teaching absolute garbage? Or tired of being misled by unqualified wannabe experts who have zero credibility or experience? If the answer is yes, now is the time to join my War Machine memberships. As a member, you're going to get exclusive access to in-depth training videos, exclusive full-feature video content, downloadable training PDFs, and direct insights you're not going to find anywhere else. Plus, you're going to have direct access to me in the comment section of all my videos. So if you have questions, you're going to get real, detailed answers from me and not some random keyboard warrior. So if you're serious about mastering real-world combat skills, hit the join button below and start training like a true war machine. Now, let's get back to the lesson. And here's where it really falls apart, because most boxers still think they have space to work their arsenal. They won't. Boxing is built on movement, angles, and managing distance, but the street doesn't give you space. In real-world combat, you fight around people, in aisles, bathrooms, buses, bars, stairwells, parking lots, elevators, hallways, and even between parked cars. Tight, filthy, confined spaces where your jab, pivot, and footwork mean nothing. And here's the irony. In boxing, the clinch gets broken up. Out here in the streets, the clinch is where the real fight begins. So one of the great things about boxing is you can utilize movement, you can exploit angles, and you can keep the opponent away at bay. And that's why the jab is such a powerful tool, because it keeps the opponent away at bay in the ring. But in the streets, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, because often in the streets, you don't have the luxury of distance. You don't have the luxury of setting them up, and you don't have the luxury of always exploiting the angle of attack. And this is really important for you guys to understand. You're not going to have the environment of a boxing ring or a cage. You're going to often be in a confined environment. Many times your opponent will encroach upon you. Maybe your back's against the wall, or you're in a crowded environment like, I don't know, a bar. You're not going to have that ability to utilize those skills. So you have to rely on close quarter combat techniques, CQC techniques. And these are things that are taught in contemporary fighting arts or a credible reality-based system. This video is just the beginning. There's still a lot to cover. How to modify your punches for bare knuckle use, when to use open hand strikes, how to manage range, launch a first strike, deal with weapons and multiple attackers, and even the legal aftermath. But all of that comes later, because if you don't get these first principles right, none of the rest will save you. Boxing builds critical attributes: timing, speed, accuracy, and composure under pressure. But none of that matters if it isn't adapted to the chaos of real violence. If you want your training to work in the real world, it has to evolve. What I've shown you today is just the foundation. Without it, everything else collapses under pressure. Part 2's coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.